Welcome to this Considered Opinions podcast.
I'm Dougal.
And I'm Celia. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about courage and encouragement. In his book, The Screwtape Letters, C.S. Lewis wrote, "Courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point, which means at the point of highest reality."
I love this quote. It really cuts to the heart of what courage is. Courage requires a willingness to do what is right and to do it despite the cost, despite any fears you may have, whatever obstacles you may face. And it takes moral strength to have courage.
I like the phrase moral fortitude.
Yes. Well, fortitude is the ancient way of saying it. They would actually call fortitude the virtue rather than courage. It's a great word. I love it. And I guess another quote jumps to mind here, that courage is, to use Rudyard Kipling's poem If, to keep your head when all around you are losing theirs. I guess one of the key things, in many respects, talking about courage, most people understand that. One of the main things I want to move on to is encouragement and how that plays into courage, because it's easy to be courageous in the short-term things when the pressure is on and you have to show courage for an hour or two or a few days or a week. But what about if it's going on for years? How do you maintain your courage then? In that respect, there's another element that comes into play, and that's encouragement, or sometimes you might think of it as hope. And there's a quote from a movie I watched recently called Kokoda, and one of the characters is talking to the doctor, and he's saying to the doctor, have you got any hope for me, doctor? Because the doctor, they haven't got any medical supplies, but the character's saying, do you have anything for me? And the doctor replies, "Where there's life, there's hope, son, and courage feeds on hope."
I like it. It reminds me of a quote from the end of War and Peace, when it says, essentially, where there is life, there is hope, and a great deal more still to come.
Maybe the Kokoda guys borrowed it from Tolstoy.
Possibly. But I like that idea that, and we have talked about this in our podcast on hope, that we need it. It's a human need to be encouraged.
Yes, absolutely. There's quite a few reasons why we need hope and encouragement. First of all, we need it for our relationships, those that are close to us and the wider community as well. It helps build those relationships and build stronger relationships. But more importantly, it builds resilience. So when tough times come along, you've got resources at hand, mental resilience at hand to deal with those tough times. It enables you to have a sustained effort. If you're just relying solely on your courage, it's easy to get burnt out. And then there are elements of it's building your motivation, because if you don't have hope, if you don't have encouragement, you're less likely to actually go out and do something or start a project. And then it also builds confidence related to that. I mean, motivation and building of confidence are very closely related to each other.
So what is, or is there a difference between hope and encouragement?
Great question. Hope is really what the individual has, and it is a virtue in the individual. And we can develop or enhance or encourage our hope in ourselves. But when we're talking encouragement, that is something that we do, or in action, or in words that we say to help build hope in others.
So hope is the emotion and encouragement is the action?
Yes, encouragement will build hope, which then flows into courage. Encourage. The key thing there is, when we're encouraging, we can encourage ourselves, but by and large, we're encouraging others. So by and large, it is actually something that we're doing for others, and we can't necessarily expect it to be paid back. It would be good if it did, and we should build relationships that are mutually encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
But encouragement really is, at its heart, a selfless act. You're doing it mostly for other people.
It's quite countercultural in a lot of ways.
It's very countercultural in that respect.
I think sometimes it would be easier for people to think of it as paying it forward.
I think we also have to be careful with encouragement insofar as morals matter. You can actually encourage people to behave badly.
Well, isn't that a difference in definitions? So encouraging people to behave badly is another way to put it in a colloquial way is egging them on.
Yeah.
So rather than actually encouraging, which is to give courage, to fill with courage.
Well, I think a lot of this is just a timely reminder that a lot of these virtues are not a fail-safe, that you actually have to practice all of them together. And so you can practice hope and courage, but if you don't have, your wisdom that gives you your moral backbone, then it can be diverted off course down an unproductive or destructive track.
Well, I actually kind of think that that's a nice way to look at it, in that it's actually what we're discussing now is a bridge between two of the virtues. So if you imagine the virtues as words, and then the little arching bridge. So we've got hope, we've got courage, and the arching bridge between them is encouragement. And then you would have courage and wisdom, and the arching bridge between them would be morality. Yes,
because courage without morality becomes brutishness. So yes, morals matter. Encouragement is also a habit. Every time we encourage someone, we are building up that habit within ourselves and hopefully encouraging them to build up the habit of encouragement too. And so it becomes a virtuous circle. We change our behaviours by forming new good habits. First, we change our beliefs, but then we've got to change our behaviours, and we do that through forming new habits.
So we change our belief in that we stop focusing on courage through sheer sense of self-will.
Yes.
And instead see courage as something that comes out of a place of hope where you are encouraged.
Yes.
Can you show courage at all if you're coming from a place of hopelessness?
It's very difficult to, because what are you showing courage for? Why? Why are you doing it?
The reason to be courageous is because of hope for the future.
So if I read, the diaries of my grandfather, when he showed courage in North Africa in the desert, he was doing it because he was looking after his little brother, and he was doing it because he had pride in his country, and he wanted to do the right thing by his country. I was reading recently about El Alamein. They found out it was in the middle of the Battle of El Alamein that it became common knowledge that the concentration camps had been constructed by the Germans. And so that would have been something that would have fortified people morally to give them courage to go and do these difficult tasks. So yeah, it's difficult to see how people could have courage without some sort of form of hope or moral fortitude sitting behind that.
What I'm seeing here is how, we think of these virtues as being individual things, and you can have courage and you can have wisdom and you can have hope and you can have love and you can have all these different ones, or you can have a few of them, pick and choose, but actually they are actually all interlinked.
They are.
So you can't really thrive in any one because they're all interconnected.
They're all interconnected and supporting each other. It's like an archway. An individual stone in an archway will fall down, but together they will hold the archway up. Now, some might be cheeky and say, well, yes, but there will be a keystone at the top and the middle. And there are plenty of philosophers that have gone through the virtues and
Trying to choose a keystone.
trying to choose a keystone. So it very well may be that one of these virtues is the keystone, but
If you have an opinion, drop it in the comments.
absolutely. And I think a couple of other items around how to encourage people is you always want to be constructive. You always want to try and celebrate the wins when they come about and encourage everyone. Some people will are very expressive and verbal, and they'll let you know when they need a bit of encouragement. Some people won't. Some people will just be quiet and you'll never know that they're struggling with something.
Just to take it a little bit back to the celebrate the wins comment, that kind of, talking about things tying in, that kind of ties in with the beauty, looking for the good around you.
Yes, that's a very good link.
The link between courage and beauty is that you will be more courageous for something good.
Yeah, okay. Beauty, if it is viewed as a moral good, is worth defending. Therefore, it is a good thing to have courage to defend beauty because you are defending a moral good.
Yes. You talked about your grandfather in the desert. He might be given courage because of hope that he has for the future.
Yes.
But he might also be courageous in that situation because he's fighting for the beauty and the good in the world. He wants that to prevail.
Yes. One of the important aspects of encouraging people is that it acknowledges them and it acknowledges their importance.
That will pay into people's mental health.
It does.
Positive mental health.
Absolutely. We always need to listen, because how do we know what might be encouraging to one person may not be for someone else? We need to understand where they are at. Others might be hopeful about things getting better, but it's just taking forever. And that might be the line of encouragement that they need. And one last point about how to encourage people, and this is really, really important for the individual now, is you can encourage yourself. And one of the key elements about this, and you talk about this a lot with the kids, is self-talk. Self-talk is oh so important. Are you being positive and hopeful and encouraging to yourself in your self-talk?
The story you tell yourself.
And we can tell ourselves the truth about what happens, and we can tell ourselves positive things about what happened, or we could tell ourselves stories that allow us to dwell in our elements of self-pity or to nurse an anger or a grudge.
So have you got a couple of thoughts to finish with?
Absolutely. I've actually got two final words of encouragement. First, for those that are concerned about, what's happening, and that would be things will be all right in the end. If things are not all right, it's not the end. And the second bit of encouragement are for those who are discouraged that the issues just seem to be never ending. And for them, I want to remind them of Winston Churchill's words, when you find that you're going through hell, keep going.
Because it's not the end. Thank you for joining us for this Considered Opinions podcast. We look forward to seeing you again next time. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.